Chapter 34, Bentley. I'd say we got fairly lucky. At least I no longer have to try to sleep when McSweeney is. After Carmelita informed us of her preference, I half-heartedly remembered a conversation I once had with the Panda King while we were in Bloodbath Bay. I phoned him up, and thankfully it was the middle of the day out in China, and he was able to confirm something and gave me the number to his daughter, who then gave me a different one. We waited until morning to make this call, although we drove out to the destination extra early. By the time we arrived, the sun was just rising, and most of the city was not awake yet. A childhood friend of Jing King's now operates a motel here in Berlin, and Jing King was able to convince him to keep our names off the record and Sly's van hidden in his garage. We got 2 different rooms, and it's only until the late afternoon before we're all fully rested and our stomachs replenished. Carmelita arrived about 2 hours ago, when half of us were still asleep. We all probably seemed quite lazy, even though she was with us on our trip. She informed us she made up a crime ring story to her higher-ups, and told them she was going off on her own to investigate for the next while, but she couldn't keep up the charade forever. She also brought us takeout, and though we weren't really starving because food was something we had stacked up on back at the trip, and our stay in the middle of the night at Interpol headquarters, no one put up a complaint. Something more notable she brought over, however, was a blue shirt and yellow pair of shoes. Not exactly Sly's usual blue, but close enough. It was a good idea. Sly got a funny look or two going inside the motel with his ancient Egyptian attire. Sly then tells us his story. Twice he has to stop to drink some water and quench his throat. He tells us of how he found ancient Egypt after a day of hopelessness, was mistaken for Sly Tutankhamun before he met him and his partner, and how they got captured by Empress Catra. That makes sense why the Thieves Raccoonus wasn't showing anything for all those months, I bring up. Wow. Sly goes on, and I can tell it's really painful to remind him of the months behind bars. Even McSweeney cringes, who's been behind bars 80 times longer than that. It's when Sly goes on to talk about their break into the pyramid to find a replacement book when he stops and looks at us puzzled all of a sudden. Say, how did you guys find me? Did the Thieves Raccoonus change and tell you the date? I go over to my bag where I've been carrying the book. I flip through it. It's been modified. Sly's handwriting is in a page I don't bother reading. I look back up at him. Well, I guess it now says the date, but that's not how. It's actually Penelope did something. This causes us all to frown as we piece things together. I tell Sly about the weird postcards and how, through digging, she led us straight to the pyramid. And then Penelope was there, with... Sly then looks nauseous. With Raleigh. Raleigh? Cries Murray. The frog? Of the old fiendish 5? Wait, says Carmelita. Go back. Raleigh was there? You guys didn't see him? Asks Sly. I guess we didn't, I answer. Well, it was him. He even blew his cheek up like I remember he could do. But Raleigh's supposed to be locked up, says Carmelita incredulously. At Heathrow. I remember Raleigh, says McSweeney. It definitely took him a long time to get used to prison life. It wasn't long before I heard him gallivanting how much he wanted his old leisurely life back. I kind of pitied him. Murray grunts. He was part of the group that killed Sly's dad. That part's not important anymore, Sly brings up. The Panda King was too, remember? Main difference is, it doesn't sound like Raleigh's grown into much of a model citizen, says Carmelita. But I could have sworn he would still be at Heathrow. If Penelope's with him, says Dimitri, then he must have hightailed it with her. That's possible. What's wrong, Carmelita? I ask. Penelope was the only one reported escaped way back then. Reports said someone else was with her, but it was presumed it was help from the outside. There's no way a prisoner could have just vanished without being noticed. Carmelita gets up. I'm going over to Heathrow to investigate. Something reeks. She grabs the coat she'd just laid on her chair's rail and leaves without anyone else getting a word in. That is honestly worrisome, I bring up. A prisoner unaccounted for? And you know something else weird, brings up Sly. Why was Penelope there? And she created that puzzle? I nod. I really have no idea what to make of all this. So, says Murray, Penelope guided us to you? But why would she do that? Especially if she was just going to attack you in that pyramid. Does she want the glory of capturing you, Sly? Was it a trap, maybe? Says Dimitri. She'd bring us all here to rescue Cooper and then bury us? Sounds quite uncouth and cruel. Raleigh would have that ambition, I say quietly. Realizing this is sounding like a desperate plea to not antagonize Penelope, I change the subject, because more needs to be thought through. Penelope was the one to make a second time machine in the first place, so it makes sense she would know how to build a different machine with Raleigh. In fact, from what I remember about the frog, he was quite the engine nut too, the mechanic for the original Fiendish Five. But for Penelope to do all of this, I realize as I'm saying it, guiding us to you, time traveling into the pyramid, she would have had to have known where and when you were, Sly. Through my glasses, I see everyone's shocked at my realization. That's true, says McSweeney. It can't be a coincidence. And what was... Sly adds something else. What were Penelope and Raleigh doing with that blimp while we were down there anyway? It seemed like we weren't the only thing on their minds. It seemed like their priority was sucking up those weird rocks. Weird rocks, says Murray. As everything was happening, I remembered reading about this in the Thieves Raccoonus, Sly goes on. In history, Slyton Commons staged a raccoon rebellion against some corrupt pharaohs, and I forget the specifics of why, but during a riot, he broke into one of the Empress's pyramids where it was said her biggest treasure was hidden at the bottom. I think it was to save someone. He got a partner of his, who I now realize was Peely, to plant handmade explosives, and he buried it to the ground. I also remember he stole a lot of food and goods and was never caught thanks to his invisibility. Sly grins mischievously as he says this tale. History got altered, I go on for him, so instead of Slyton Commons staging that revolution, the other raccoons did it on their own because he and you were locked up. Then the pyramid crumbled anyway because of Penelope and Raleigh's blimp. I guess it did. Sly seems amused by this. That pyramid was not the most sturdy ancient creation. So, back to subject. That treasure Slyton Common broke into the pyramid to bury. That treasure was those rocks? Well, Sly's smile recedes. I never knew what the actual treasure was. Now it's coming back to me. I assumed it was simple gold. But, I mean, they made potions down there to make skin and armor so much stronger. Who knows what exact treasure that could have been, or what the rocks actually do. We should go back and ask, says Murray. We can't, I sigh. The time machine got whacked while we were there. It's actually a miracle we got back before it completely short-circuited. Well, can you fix it? Asks Sly. I promised Slyton Common I'd return to get him and the others out of the city. Not right now. Even if I wanted to, it's very broken. I'm also going to have to look into it carefully and thoroughly. We don't want it to glitch and strand any of us in time again, and this is the only machine in existence. Besides Penelope's, brings up Dimitri, we could commandeer hers. That's actually not a bad idea, I say. We'll tally-ho it in case I can't properly rebuild. We would have to know where Raleigh's blimp is first, says Murray. The actual machine, and I don't really know where we would start looking. I might, I say. In my pack, I bring out my monitoring device. I had this on me back in the pyramid. I took the chance to scan some data about the blimp. Once I saw it here, I felt it would be useful. Well done, Bentley, says Sly, clearly duly impressed. I always appreciate these moments where I can feel like a rock star. Well, I rub my head. I haven't had the chance to go over it yet. I don't know how long it will take me to decode. I haven't even looked at it as of yet. You know, brings up McSweeney, you kids just rescued Junior here. And I don't know what this Penelope and Raleigh are up to. We'll fill Inspector Fox in about all this when we hear back from her, and I trust you will be able to figure something out from that machine, little fella. But right now, we're not technically under attack or being hunted. We have the rest of our lives to worry about the next day. Why don't we kick back for now? Anyone up for truth or dare or something? We all make eye contact. Slowly, one by one, we smile.